Vulkan, the Promethean, Primarch of the Salamanders, has been rumored to return for years now, and Games Workshop has been teasing us about this quite a bit more than usual lately. With the release of the new Vulkan He'Stan model, some fun new lore in the form of a short story and a lore primer on the character dropped on the Warhammer Community site. And I have to say, it's like looking at the path to Vulkan's return, laid out like the yellow brick road. It's a journey, and will be quite the adventure, but at the end of it all, I do believe the Lord of Drakes will emerge into the galactic game once again, and lead his sons against the foes of humanity. With the emphasis on He'Stan and the community constantly frothing at the mouth for anything concerning the return of a Primarch, the Salamanders players and fans are as ready as anyone for their Legion's father to come home. Yeah, he just went out for a pack of camel filters. He said he'd be back. Have faith. As usual, Games Workshop gave us several clues, teases, and tidbits, and they all point in the same direction. Only a few of the relics of Vulkan are still missing, and under Vulkan He'Stan, the Salamanders are actively and indiscriminately looking for them. And He'Stan will stop at nothing to find them, such as his will. He'll go so far as sacrificing the entire chapter like they were 1,000 Artilus Numions. If it helps him find his Gene Father and bring him back, reuniting with the Imperium, he'll do it. So unlike so many chapters that are sitting around waiting for their Primarch to come back, the Salamanders are putting everything they've got into finding him. A shame they don't just outsource it to the Ultramarines. So here's what the short story, well, more like flash fiction or microfiction, as well as the lore primer, said on the Warhammer Community website. The Drake and the Hydra. Bitter winds howled through the chasm, tearing at Vulkan He'Stan's drakeskin cloak. The scaled garment whipped around his form like a living serpent. Before him, scrambling out of the shadows, came a screaming torrent of heretics. Wild auto gunfire smashed into the walls of the mountain cleft and deflected from his ceramite plate. Infernus Marines, clad in the colors of the Covenant of Fire, formed up around him. They unleashed a wall of flaming promethium into the cultists. Consumed by the torrent of flame, the rabid heretics screamed wildly. The hardiest staggered through the inferno, flesh sloughing away, eyes wild with zeal and agony, only to be bludgeoned to death by ceramite fists. He'Stan strode on through the flame, the cultist's blackened bones cracking and splintering beneath his ceramite tread. A snarling survivor lunged toward him, stabbing wildly with an onyx dagger. The Forgefather swatted the assailant aside with a backhand strike from his gauntlet. The blow shattered the traitor's skull and propelled their limp corpse into the wall of the ravine. On He'Stan went, skewering another foe on the burning tip of the Spear of Vulkan before shaking the writhing, burning body loose. The massive heretics had begun to thin now, turned back by the heat of the searing inferno sweeping towards them. Ahead, the pass widened slightly, terminating in an obsidian doorway wrought from the igneous rock face. Dark figures emerged from within, pushing their way past the lesser cultists fleeing for safety. The burnished silver trim of their armor glowed, dancing flames reflected upon polished metal. The leader of the traitor Space Marines paused before He'Stan. His baleful gaze settled upon the Forgefather. Witchlight danced across the traitor's palm. A cruel, sharp-toothed smile spread across his face. Such persistence, the sorcerer hissed, and yet such wasted effort. The Unbound Flame shall never be yours. The Lord of Drakes will not return. He'Stan broke into a run, hefting the Spear of Vulkan, ordering his Infernus Marines to advance with him. The Chaos Space Marines opened fire. Bolter rounds detonated against Kessere's mantle, barely scratching the toughened drakescale hide. Two of He'Stan's battle brothers fell to the ground, wounded or dead. The sorcerer pointed his staff at the Forgefather. Tendrils of empiric energy lanced from its tip and ensnared him, taking the form of a coiling, many-headed serpent. The Forgefather struggled to free himself from the infernal bonds, gritting his teeth as reptilian maws snapped and hissed. The Forgefather roared and flexed his muscles, empowered by his burning rage, unshackling himself from the Psyker's spell by sheer force of will. The Hydra's coil shattered, and he was free. The sorcerer scowled, already working another hex as his bodyguard opened fire again. Bolt shells slammed into He'Stan's armor. The Infernus Marines responded in kind. A torrent of liquid fire washed over the traitor legionnaires. With transhuman resilience, they pressed forward through the onslaught, continuing to fire until the liquid flame ate its way through the seams of their armor and cooked their flesh. The stench of burning meat filled the air as the legionnaires finally toppled. Wisps of smoke and burning embers trailed from their ruptured armor. Only the sorcerer remained standing, charred but unbowed. An unclean aura split from his armored form, some form of warding spell that had shielded him from the inferno. He'Stan lunged forward, thrusting the spear of Vulkan towards the traitor. Its flaming tip bit deep, driving into one of the sorcerer's corrupted hearts. The heretic's spell died on his lips and his mouth opened in a silent scream. Wisps of smoke escaped from his throat as he fell. "Now we search this place," the Forgefather rumbled to his battle brothers, gesturing to the doorway, "and let nothing escape our notice." Okay, so that was fun. Let's see, Vulkan He'Stan, the man who is chapter master of the Salamanders, who had to take the name of his Primarch, as is tradition in the Promethean cult, is awesome. And it is quite telling that they're reminding us how close the Salamanders are to achieving their goal of finding all the artifacts. It's a tease to mention the Unbound Flame like that. Vulkan He'Stan would definitely want to find that artifact, and would literally let his own battle brothers die to achieve that goal. And if you don't believe me, take it from the horse's mouth. When we look on the Warhammer Community site, we get this cool flash fiction short, but they also put a lore article, and it is just as telling. "My quest is a gift from Vulkan himself. I have traded brotherhood for a sacred calling, one for which I shall gladly give my life. May the flames devour any who stand in my way. Forgefather Vulkan He'Stan." The ancient history of the Salamanders chapter is shrouded in myth and legend. According to the scraps of lore that remain, the Primarch Vulkan scattered 9 potent artifacts across the galaxy. He did this not only to prevent them from falling into the hands of the enemies of humanity, but also as a test for his gene sons. In his wisdom, the Primarch realized that even the grandest prize is worth nothing if it is seized without challenge. If his scions were to wield these relics, they would first have to prove themselves worthy of doing so. It is the fate of the chapter's Forgefather, currently Vulkan He'Stan, to spend his life questing for the remaining relics and returning them to the chapter's custody. The rank of Forgefather came into existence soon after Vulkan's disappearance, and has remained a crucial position ever since. Only the greatest of the chapter's champions are considered for the role, such as the determination, endurance, and focus required. The quest for Vulkan's lost relics requires a gift for battlefield strategy and a resilience of mind and body. Most who have held the position have endured a lifetime of searching without success. A Forgefather must accept that the most likely result of centuries of endless searching is failure, and yet retain always a spark of hope. In short, he who holds the rank of Forgefather must be the best of the Salamanders in all aspects of warfare. Once captain of the 4th Company, Forgefather He'Stan had served his chapter for a century when he was selected by the chapter's Pantheon Council to take up the mantle. In accordance with chapter tradition, he abandoned his own forename and took that of his missing Primarch. In the decades since, Vulkan He'Stan has crossed the galaxy repeatedly, following clues found within the Tome of Fire. His path has taken him to many worlds in the grip of the Emperor's foes, be they heretics or Xenos invaders. It is the belief of most Salamanders that the recovery of Vulkan's lost relics will herald the return of the Primarch, and the chapter, as well as the majority of its successors, will willingly spend copious lives and resources in the furtherance of He'Stan's quest. Of Vulkan's 9 relics, 5 have been recovered. He'Stan bears 3 of them at all times. The Spear of Vulkan is a potent power weapon that glows with the heat of the forge and can burn through solid ceramite. The Drake-scale cloak, known as Kessere's mantle, is almost impenetrable, lending its bearer great protection. The Gauntlet of the Forge, meanwhile, is a piece of masterwork armor fitted with an integral heavy flamer. Thus armed and protected, Vulkan He'Stan is rendered even more formidable in battle. The final 2 recovered relics, the forge ship Chalice of Fire and the defense laser known as Eye of Vulkan, remain in orbit above Prometheus, the moon that hosts the chapter's fortress monastery. The remainder are known only by name, their forms and functions having long since been lost to the chapter's record: the Engine of Woes, the Obsidian Chariot, the Unbound Flame, and the Song of Entropy. Following the opening of the Great Rift, Vulkan He'Stan's quest took him deep into Imperium Nihilus. There, accompanied by battle brothers of the Hammers of Nocturne and Covenant of Fire, he was drawn to the planet Zero. Amidst the madness of encroaching warp storms, he sensed the smoldering ember of a clue, one that he believed might lead him to the Unbound Flame. He was not alone in pursuing this line of investigation. Thus followed a brutal conflict between the Forgefather's forces and those of the Alpha Legion, whose agents had infiltrated elements of the Hammers of Nocturne and swayed much of the world's populace to their cause. Whilst the Forgefather's army eventually prevailed, forcing the surviving Alpha Legion to abandon their mortal agents and retreat, no trace of the clue he sought could be found. Marshalling the remainder of his battle brothers, He'Stan now follows the spoor of the traitors deep into this benighted region of the galaxy. He had faced such frustration many times before. Perhaps, he reasoned, pertinent information could yet be dredged from the minds of Alfarius' sons. The Tome of Fire. More than a simple book, the Tome of Fire is an archive of diverse works crafted by the Primarch Vulkan. Amongst this trove of items are many volumes bound in drakeskin and containing esoteric knowledge now largely lost to the rest of humanity. The Salamanders believe that the books, trinkets, and mechanical devices that comprise the Tome of Fire contain hidden clues as to the location of Vulkan's 9 lost treasures. Each successive Forgefather spends long periods of time inspecting and cataloging the contents of the collection, tinkering with their arrangement, experimenting with their mechanisms, and seeking to glean from them a measure of enlightenment that his predecessors may have overlooked. Okay, so that's all Games Workshop saying we're laying the foundation, paving the way for the return of the most beloved Primarch of all, perhaps next to Sanguinius. But Vulkan is in a position to not only return, but he's actually prophesied to do just that. There are indeed a lot of rumors about Primarch returns, going back at least 20 years that I'm aware of, on Warseer nonetheless. I think this is more than just an update of the Chapter Master, who did definitely deserve a glow-up, and it is more likely all foreshadowing. I mean, it isn't exactly subtle. Who wouldn't want to see the Promethean, Vulkan himself, hit the tabletop in the 41st millennium? And who wouldn't want to see what kind of mental state he'd be in? Anyway, I hope you see what I do. The Unbound Flame burning bright, far off in the distance, steadily getting closer. Vulkan is coming. Of that I am more sure than ever. We might get a Russ first, or maybe not, but I am now 100% convinced that the recent rumors about his return are true. Remember, I've been saying since pretty much day one of this channel that the lore and the tabletop are actually coming together in huge ways. And if I'm wrong, well, I guess that's fine too. It is just science, fantasy, and plastic toy soldiers after all. But I have to say, at least we got enough made for Vulkan He'Stan. Vulkan lives!